I got the shock of my life when my wife of 5 years wanted to open the relationship for a woman. I've been married to Cora for 5 years, and we're both in our mid-30s. Our relationship started strong, with a solid foundation of trust, love, and mutual respect. We shared similar dreams and values, or so I thought. But a year ago, Cora dropped a bombshell. She told me that she thought she might be bisexual and was curious about exploring a romantic relationship with a woman. I felt blindsided. In response, I asked, "Are you thinking about a casual fling or something more serious?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with sincerity, and said, "An actual relationship." At that moment, I could tell this wasn't just a passing thought for her. It was something that had been weighing on her heart. She explained that she felt she had so much love to give, that she wanted to explore this part of herself, and she wasn't sure if she could do that without fully experiencing it. But for me, the immediate concern was time. Our lives were busy, and I wondered if we both could handle the emotional and practical implications of opening up our relationship. I expressed my reservations, told her I wasn't on board, and hoped that would close the conversation. I was wrong. 4 months later, she brought it up again. This time, she had softened her stance. "I don't need a full-on relationship with someone else," she said. "I'd be okay with just an FWB arrangement, no emotional strings attached." I still felt hesitant, but it was something that kept circling back, an ever-present topic. Eventually, I relented. I agreed that we could explore the idea, but only if we did it the right way, researching the dynamics of open relationships through books, podcasts, and seeing a couples counselor. Cora was ecstatic. She threw herself into this with a sense of excitement I hadn't seen before, and we dove into the resources with renewed energy. In therapy, one of the first questions we were asked was why we wanted to open up our marriage. Our therapist made it clear that we needed to explore this decision thoroughly, and if we had someone in mind, we needed to be honest about it. That's when Cora confessed something that completely took me off guard. She had been talking to Lena, a woman she'd met through a mutual friend, for over a year. Lena had encouraged her to open up our marriage and explore a relationship with her. I was stunned. This was the first time I'd heard of Lena, and my stomach dropped. Our therapist immediately pointed out that this was a red flag, and I felt the weight of it. After the session, I confronted Cora. I asked if she had done more than talk to Lena, if there was something physical happening behind my back. She swore that nothing had happened, that their conversations were innocent. I asked to see her phone. She unlocked it without hesitation, and I scrolled through the messages. There was nothing explicitly inappropriate, just a growing attraction between them. But there was also a message from Lena, right before this latest polyamory discussion started, suggesting that Cora initiates sex with me more often to soften me up. I found myself confused and a bit betrayed. As I continued to dig, I found something even more alarming. Hidden among her apps were 3 dating profiles. Cora had been actively looking for a woman for more than just a fling. She'd been planning this for a while. This was a boundary I hadn't agreed to, and it led to a heated argument. Cora agreed to delete the apps until we figured things out, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Months passed, and we continued our journey of trying to open up. Cora was practically buzzing with excitement, and though I still had reservations, I wanted to support her. Our next therapy session focused on finalizing agreements and setting boundaries. We carefully went through the list: coworkers, close friends, exes, relatives, and I added one more condition: Lena. I asked that she be added to our messy list of people with whom we would not engage romantically. That's when things escalated. Cora immediately blew up. She argued that it wasn't fair, that Lena had become such an important part of her life, but the therapist sided with me, saying it was a reasonable request. I thought we were at an impasse. On the drive home, she wouldn't speak to me, and when we got inside, the tension between us exploded. I showed her where in our reading it explicitly said that starting an open relationship for the purpose of being with a specific person was a bad idea, but she wasn't having it. She spent the next 2 days sleeping in the spare bedroom and barely speaking to me. It felt like we were on the brink of collapse. Finally, she relented. She agreed to add Lena to the list, and we officially opened our marriage. The next few days felt surreal. Cora came to me and told me she had a date lined up. I tried to be supportive, but the timing fell off. Just days after our big conversation and agreeing to terms, she was already making plans to meet someone. I felt uneasy, but I didn't want to be the controlling husband. However, when she went to shower, I couldn't help myself. I picked up her phone. I immediately noticed that the unlock code had changed, which raised a red flag. Later that day, when she was distracted, I caught a glimpse of the new code. I waited until she was asleep, then unlocked her phone and started scrolling. What I found wasn't just disappointing, it was devastating. The dating apps were gone, but there were messages between her and Lena that made my stomach turn. They were trash-talking me, planning their date, and there were references to their sexual relationship. My heart sank. They'd been planning all along. I emailed myself the screenshots and felt like a fool, like I'd been played, and I had let it happen. That night, I barely slept. The next day, I called a lawyer. I knew this was it. The trust was shattered. The lawyer didn't hesitate. He put a rush on the divorce papers, and within hours, they were served to Cora just 2 hours before her date with Lena. The papers included the screenshots of the text messages. I watched as she came home that evening, tears in her eyes, clearly caught off guard. She asked me what was going on, and I lied. I told her I'd known about everything all along. "It doesn't matter now," I said. "We're not married anymore. You're free to do whatever you want. Consider us FWB. Just make sure you hurry up and get to Lena's. She's waiting." I walked away to meet some friends for dinner, leaving her to deal with the mess she'd created. Update: November 12th, 2023. The past few months have been an emotional roller coaster, and it feels like I've been dragged through every conceivable emotional and psychological loop. To catch up, Cora had spent so much time pushing me to open up our marriage that I eventually relented. I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting her exploration, but little did I know, I was walking right into a trap that, in hindsight, I can now clearly see was set from the very beginning. Cora had been talking about being bisexual for over a year. At first, I wasn't sure how to process it. I knew she'd been suppressing parts of herself, and I wanted to be supportive, but the idea of opening up our marriage felt like a huge leap. For months, she had been dropping hints, gently coaxing me into agreeing. At first, she framed it as just curiosity, a way to explore this side of her identity. But as time went on, the conversation became more intense, more insistent. She talked about having so much love to share, that she wanted to explore a romantic relationship with a woman, and I felt the pressure building. It wasn't long before she made it clear that she wanted more than just a one-night fling. She was serious about pursuing an emotional connection with someone. My immediate reaction was to put up walls. I expressed my concerns about time, energy, and how I wasn't sure that opening up would be fair to either of us. But Cora pushed and pushed. I kept saying no, trying to hold on to the marriage and the boundaries that we had set. But she was relentless, slowly wearing me down. Eventually, I agreed to the idea of opening things up, but with conditions. I made it clear that we needed to do it responsibly. I wanted us to read books, listen to podcasts, and most importantly, go to therapy. I thought that by approaching it thoughtfully, we could navigate this new chapter without completely breaking the foundation of our marriage. Cora was overjoyed. She practically radiated excitement as we dove into the material. I was still cautious, but I figured I could learn, adapt, and maybe even come to terms with it. Our therapist was a neutral, thoughtful person who helped us work through many of the potential issues we would face. The first session was a wake-up call. The therapist asked us why we wanted to open up our marriage and if there was anyone specific we had in mind. Cora hesitated, then revealed she had already been talking to a woman, Lena, who she had met through mutual friends. Lena was someone who had encouraged her to explore an open relationship. At that moment, I was hit with a gut punch. I hadn't even heard of Lena before this, and it immediately made my stomach turn. I knew in that moment that there was more to this story than I had been told. Our therapist noted that this was a red flag. It felt like a betrayal in itself. Cora had been talking to someone in secret, and I had been left in the dark. After the session, I confronted her. I asked if she had done more than just talk to Lena. She swore up and down that nothing had happened between them, that their conversations had been innocent. I asked to see her phone, and she unlocked it without hesitation. As I scrolled through her messages, I didn't find anything explicit, but there was a clear, mutual attraction between them. It was subtle, but it was there. The final blow came when I found a message from Lena right before our last therapy session, where she suggested Cora soften me up by initiating sex more often. That was when I realized the depth of what was happening. The discovery shook me, but it wasn't until I found 3 dating apps on her phone, apps that I didn't know she had, that the real betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. Cora had been actively looking for a woman, and she had been planning this for far longer than she let on. I confronted her, and an argument followed. She reluctantly agreed to delete the apps, but by then, the damage had already been done. I felt betrayed and unsure of what was real anymore. Despite my reservations, I kept moving forward with the process of opening up the marriage. I tried to convince myself that I was doing the right thing for her and for us. Cora was practically glowing with anticipation, and she was more eager than ever to explore this new chapter of her life. As time went on, it became clear that she was becoming more and more attached to the idea of being with Lena, and I started to feel like a bystander in my own marriage. Still, I kept trying to stay open-minded. We went to more therapy sessions, carefully crafting boundaries and agreements. When we got to the messy list, I was adamant that Lena be added. I didn't trust her. I didn't want my wife to be involved with someone who had already played a significant role in pushing us into this situation. When I insisted on this, Cora exploded. The tension was palpable. She argued with me for hours, claiming that it wasn't fair to target Lena. But the therapist backed me up, saying that it was a reasonable request. That night, Cora refused to speak to me. I could feel the gap between us widening. 2 days later, after some back and forth, Cora finally gave in. She agreed to add Lena to the messy list, and at last, we were officially open. I thought that was the turning point. But looking back, it was just the beginning of the end. Not long after, Cora casually mentioned she had a date scheduled with a woman. My first instinct was to feel uneasy. It was too soon, but I tried to suppress that feeling, to push aside the fear that had been bubbling up inside me. That evening, Cora went to take a shower, and I noticed her phone on the counter. Something inside me snapped. I knew I shouldn't, but I unlocked her phone to check her messages. The code had changed, which immediately raised a red flag. Later, when she wasn't looking, I saw the new code and waited until she was distracted again. When I unlocked it, my heart sank. The dating apps were gone, just like she promised. But the messages between her and Lena, they were still there. In fact, they were worse than I could have imagined. There were conversations about trash-talking me, plans for their date, and, most devastating of all, references to having sex again. It was clear that they had been planning this from the start. The realization hit me like a freight train. I had been played. I had been so focused on doing the right thing, so invested in supporting Cora's journey, that I had failed to see the betrayal that was happening right under my nose. I couldn't let it go. I emailed the screenshots to myself, feeling like the biggest fool. For the first time, I truly understood the depth of the lies and manipulation that had been unfolding. I stewed on it all night, pacing around our house, feeling like I was suffocating. The next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I called a lawyer. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and deceit. The lawyer was incredible. He rushed everything through, and within hours, Cora was served with divorce papers. I didn't know what I expected her reaction to be, but it wasn't what I saw. She came home from her date with Lena, tears streaming down her face. I knew she had just been served the papers, but I didn't want to deal with her emotions. When she asked me what was going on, I lied. I knew about it all along. I said, "It's over. We're done." The truth was, I was done. There was no coming back from this. I told her to hurry and fix her face if she was planning on being at Lena's house on time. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door to dinner with friends, leaving her to sort out the mess she had made. I don't know what's next. The divorce process is already underway, and I'm beginning to move on with my life. But part of me still feels numb, like I'm watching all of this unfold from a distance. The hardest part is knowing that I was manipulated knowing that Cora played me and never gave me the honesty and transparency I deserved. It feels like the rug was pulled out from under me, and I'm still trying to figure out how to stand again. Cora had what she wanted. She pushed me into a corner and got everything she wanted, but she lost me in the process. And now, as we near the end of the year, I'm planning my next steps. I've started looking at condos downtown, and I hope to be out before Christmas. If Cora spends the weekend with Lena, I'll be gone before she even realizes it. I need to move forward, and as much as it hurts, I know I'm better off on my own than in a marriage built on lies and broken promises. Update 2, November 29th, 2023. It's been a few weeks since I last posted, and I wish I could say things have calmed down or that I have more clarity, but it feels like everything has only gotten more complicated and more painful. I never imagined I'd find myself in this position, standing on the precipice of the end of my marriage, heartbroken, and questioning everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the person I married. Yet, here I am, still trying to make sense of what happened and figure out the best path forward. After the divorce papers were served, I thought there would be a sense of closure, of finality. I expected Cora to come to her senses, maybe even show some remorse for her actions. But instead, what happened was something I wasn't prepared for at all. The day after she received the papers, she tried to reach out. She sent texts, called, and even came by my place while I was at work, hoping to talk things through. I wasn't interested in having a conversation at that point. I had already made up my mind. But a few days later, we had our final counseling session, something I agreed to because I wanted to be sure I was making the right decision. The idea was to at least try to salvage whatever could be salvaged. I figured that therapy might help us both process everything. That session was a turning point, though not for the reasons I had hoped. Cora admitted, with surprising bluntness, that she had cheated on me with Lena. She didn't hesitate or try to sugarcoat it. It wasn't just an emotional affair or some minor infidelity. It was full-on physical betrayal. The kind of betrayal that leaves a mark on your soul. She explained how things had started innocently enough, but over time, Lena had become her confidant, and eventually, her lover. All of this had been happening right under my nose, despite my trust and my efforts to create boundaries. It was a gut punch, but what hit me harder than her admission was her complete lack of remorse. Cora didn't seem sorry. There were no tears, no apologies for the pain she'd caused me. Instead, she blamed me for being controlling and dragging my feet on opening up our marriage. She tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming that I was the one who had made this whole situation more difficult than it needed to be. She said I wasn't open-minded enough to embrace what she needed. I sat there in shock, listening to her explain how everything was my fault because I had been reluctant to embrace the idea of a polyamorous relationship and had hesitated to fully dive into it when she wanted me to. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything that had happened, after the lies, the betrayal, the emotional manipulation, she still couldn't take accountability for her actions. It was as though my pain was irrelevant, as if my feelings didn't matter. That was when it truly hit me that the woman I married was gone. By the end of the session, I was more certain than ever that I had made the right choice. There was no fixing this. There was no going back to what we had. Cora had shown me who she really was, and the person sitting across from me wasn't someone I recognized. I couldn't reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the woman who was now sitting there, refusing to own up to her betrayal and instead continuing to deflect and blame me for everything. It was the final straw. When we got home, I told her that I was done. I couldn't do this anymore. I had made it clear that I wasn't open to continuing our marriage unless we went back to monogamy. No contact with Lena, no more lies, and a commitment to rebuilding trust, or the divorce would go through. There was no middle ground anymore. I couldn't be in a relationship with someone who continually disregarded my boundaries, my feelings, and my trust. I told her that if she was serious about trying to salvage anything, she needed to end things with Lena and focus on us. Otherwise, the divorce was proceeding, and we'd go our separate ways. Her reaction was exactly what I expected. She seemed angry, defensive, and unwilling to accept the reality of the situation. Cora still insisted that everything could be fixed, that we just needed to work harder, be more patient, and that eventually I'd come around to the idea of polyamory. She didn't understand that I wasn't just upset about the fact that she had cheated. I was devastated by the constant manipulation, the emotional games, and a lack of respect she had shown me through this entire ordeal. I wanted a partner who valued me, someone who could see me as an equal and who was willing to take responsibility for their actions. Cora didn't want that. She wanted things her way, and she was determined to make it my fault when it didn't work out. That night, I did something that felt like a final step in this process. I started looking for a place to live. I had already made the decision, but now I was taking action. I spent hours searching for condos in the downtown area. I didn't want to be close to Cora anymore. The house, the memories, the life we had built together, it was all tainted. I needed a fresh start. I found a few places that seemed promising and began contacting real estate agents to set up showings. It was a strange mix of excitement and sadness. On one hand, I was excited to break free from a toxic situation and start over. But on the other hand, it was hard to shake the feeling of loss. I had invested so much of myself into this marriage, and now I was walking away from it. My plan was to move out before Christmas. I wanted to be settled into a new place by then. I knew that if Cora spent another weekend with Lena, I would already be gone before she even realized it. The idea of quietly slipping away was comforting to me. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation, nor did I want to drag out this painful process any longer. The truth was, I was already mentally and emotionally checked out of this marriage. I didn't need any more closure from Cora. What I needed now was space, peace, and a chance to rebuild my life without the shadow of this betrayal looming over me. Cora kept pushing, though. She insisted that we could work it out, that we could find a way to make this all work if I would just give her one more chance. But I was done listening. I told her that I had already made up my mind, that I couldn't live like this anymore. She didn't get it, of course. She thought that if she just apologized or promised to stop seeing Lena, that I'd be willing to forgive her and pick up the pieces of our broken marriage. But forgiveness doesn't work like that. Trust doesn't work like that. You don't just get to ask for another chance after you've broken someone's heart and lied to them for months. The next few days were tense. Cora continued to act like everything was fine, like we were just having a rough patch. She kept telling me that she was willing to work on herself and that she was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. But I knew better now. I knew that the Cora I married, the woman I loved and trusted, was gone. In her place was someone who didn't respect me, someone who didn't care about the pain she had caused. It was hard to admit that, but it was the truth. I'm still in the process of moving out, and I'm doing my best to stay strong. It's not easy. Some days, I feel a sense of relief, like I'm finally free. But other days, the weight of everything hits me again. I spent so many years building my life with Cora, and it's hard to let go of all those memories. But I know that in the end, this is for the best. I deserve someone who values me, who respects my boundaries, and who doesn't push me into uncomfortable situations for their own gain. I deserve someone who is willing to fight for me, not just for their own desires. The divorce isn't final yet, but it's in motion. I've already started to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm slowly learning to trust myself again. The hardest part has been accepting that I did everything I could, that I gave my best to a marriage that wasn't meant to last. It's painful, but it's also liberating. And though it hurts to walk away, I know it's the right choice for me. I'm hoping to move into my new place before Christmas, and if Cora chooses to spend her time with Lena, I'll be long gone. It's time for me to focus on myself now. I've been through the worst of it, and while I don't have all the answers, I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of this tunnel.